The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with beings from 100 different worlds. They floated, crawled, walked, and slithered to their seats. The ceiling was made of glass, and through it, 1,000 stars burned in the endless black of space. This was the most powerful place in the known universe. Here, the fate of entire species was decided. Today, they were talking about humans. Ambassador Volek stood at the center of the chamber. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His gray skin was covered in scars, and his 4 eyes held the weight of terrible memories. The Tessari Collective had once been a proud empire. That was before they met the humans. "I am here to give you a warning," Volek said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. "Do not attack the humans. Do not harm their people. Do not touch their worlds." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Council leader Belmok, a massive creature with golden scales and 6 arms, leaned forward in his throne. "Ambassador, the humans are children. They have been traveling between stars for only 300 years. They are weak. They are soft. They die so quickly that they barely have time to learn anything." "That is exactly why they are dangerous," Volek replied. "They know their lives are short, so they waste no time. When you hurt them, they do not wait for the wound to heal. They strike back immediately, and they do not stop." "Every species fights back when attacked," said another council member. "This is not special." Volek shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. Other species fight until they are tired. They fight until the cost becomes too high. They fight until they forget why they were angry. Humans are different. They write down the names of their enemies. They teach their children to remember. They pass their hatred from generation to generation like a sacred fire." The chamber grew quieter. Some of the older species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had heard stories. "My people attacked a human colony 200 years ago," Volek continued. "We killed 10,000 of them. We thought we had one. We thought they would fear us and leave us alone." He paused, and his voice grew heavy. "For the next 150 years, they hunted us. They destroyed our fleet piece by piece. They assassinated our leaders one by one. They turned our allies against us. By the end, we were begging for peace. We gave them everything they asked for, and still, some of them continued hunting us for another 50 years, not for politics. Not for territory, but simply because they had promised their dead that they would." Silence filled the great hall. Council leader Belmok waved one of his 6 arms dismissively. "Your people were weak, Ambassador. The Valdori Empire is not weak. We have 2,000 warships. We control 200 star systems. If the humans cause trouble, we will crush them." A Valdori general stood up from his seat. His name was Krovis, and he was famous for his brutal efficiency. "The humans have a colony called New Busan in Sector 7. It sits on a planet rich with valuable minerals. I propose we take it. A quick strike. Destroy their military. Claim the resources. Show the galaxy that humans can be defeated." Volek's eyes widened. "You would attack civilians? You would kill innocents." "There are no innocents in war," Krovis replied coldly. "Only winners and losers." "Then you've already lost," Volek said quietly. "You just do not know it yet." The council voted. The motion passed. The Valdori would attack New Busan.Volek walked out of the chamber without another word. He had done what he could. Now, all he could do was watch and wait for the galaxy to burn. On the colony of New Busan, life continued as normal. The planet was beautiful green forests, blue oceans, and cities that sparkled like jewels under twin suns. 50,000 humans lived there. They were farmers, scientists, teachers, and children. They had no idea what was coming. Captain Unikong stood on the bridge of her ship. The dawn's light. She was 32 years old, with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She had served in the United Earth Fleet for 10 years, and she had never lost a battle. But today, something felt wrong. "Lieutenant Minho," she said to her tactical officer. "What is that?" Minho Beak looked at his screen. His face went pale. "Captain, I am detecting a large fleet entering our sector. Valdori signatures. At least 50 warships. Yuna's heart went cold. Contact Earth's command. Now. The message went out, but the response came too late. The Valdori fleet moved faster than anyone expected. They did not send warnings. They did not make demands. They simply opened fire. New Busan burned. Yuna watched from orbit as cities turned to ash. She heard the screams over the communication channels, mothers calling for their children. Soldiers fighting to the last breath, and then silence. Terrible, empty silence. Her younger brother, Tai-ho, was down there. He was 23 years old. He was a teacher who loved poetry and dreamed of writing books. He had stayed behind to help evacuate the children from his school. She never heard from him again. When the attack was over, the Valdori fleet gathered above the burning planet. General Crovis sent a message to the surviving human ships: leave this sector. Do not return. This world belongs to the Valdori now. Yuna stood alone on her bridge. Her crew was silent, their faces filled with horror and grief. She looked at the planet below, the place where her brother lived and laughed and died. Then she opened a channel to the Valdori flagship. General Crovis, she said. Her voice was steady, but there was something in it that made even her own crew step back. I want you to remember this moment. Remember what you did here. Remember every life you took. Crovis laughed. And why should I remember? Yuna's eyes were dry. She had no tears left, only fire. Because I am going to find you, she said. No matter how long it takes. No matter where you hide. I will find you and I will make you pay for every single one of them. This is not a threat. This is a promise. She ended the transmission. The hunt had begun. The news of New Busan spread across human space like wildfire. Every screen on every world showed the same images: burning cities, floating debris, and the names of 50,000 dead scrolling endlessly across the bottom of the screen. For 3 days, humanity was silent. They watched. They mourned. They remembered. Then they got angry. In the capital city of Earth, millions gathered in the streets. They did not riot. They did not scream. They simply stood together, holding candles and pictures of the dead. Old soldiers who had not worn their uniforms in decades put them on again. Scientists stopped their research and began designing weapons. Engineers who built houses started building warships. The United Nations of Earth held an emergency meeting. The vote was unanimous. This was war. Admiral Jaho Park was given command of the new fleet. He was 55 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. He had spent his whole life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Now it was here. His daughter had lived on New Busan. She was 26. She had been a doctor, saving lives in a small clinic near the ocean. Her name was Soman. He kept her picture in his pocket, next to his heart. We will not fight this war the way they expect, Jiho told his officers on the first day. We are outnumbered. We cannot match them ship for ship. So we will not try. We will be patient. We will be smart. And we will never, ever stop. Captain Unikong was promoted and given command of a new ship, a stealth cruiser called the Silent Wrath. It was small and fast. Designed to slip through enemy lines without being seen, her mission was simple. Find the officers responsible for New Busan and bring them to justice. Dead or alive. Her crew was small but skilled. Lieutenant Minho Beek was her tactical officer. He had a gift for strategy and could predict enemy movements before they happened. Dr. Hannah Shin was her science officer. She had once studied alien biology out of curiosity. Now she studied it to find weaknesses. Insin Doan Lim was her communications officer. He was only 19 years old. He had survived New Busan by hiding in the ruins of his school for 2 days until rescue ships arrived. He rarely smiled anymore. The Galactic Council watched from their great hall and laughed. The Valdori Empire had 2,000 warships. The humans had less than 300. The math was simple. The humans would lose, but humans did not care about math. The first strike came 3 months after New Busan. A Valdori supply station on the edge of their territory exploded without warning. No one saw the attackers. No one knew how it happened. The station commander reported seeing nothing on his sensors until the missiles were already flying. A week later, another station was destroyed. Then another. Then a communication relay. Then a fuel depot. The Valdori sent fleets to hunt the attackers, but they found nothing. The human ships were ghosts. They struck in the darkness, disappeared before anyone could respond, and struck again somewhere else. General Krovis was furious. He demanded more ships, more soldiers, more resources. The Valdori Emperor gave him everything he asked for, but it was never enough. Ambassador Volok watched the reports from his home world. He felt no joy, only sadness. He had warned them. They had not listened. "It has begun," he whispered to himself, "and it will not end for a very long time." On the silent Wrath, Una gathered her crew around a holographic map. Red dots marked Valdori targets. Green lines showed their patrol routes. Blue circles marked places where human ships had struck and vanished. "We're not trying to win battles," Una explained. "We are trying to make them afraid. Every time they look at the stars, I want them to wonder if we are watching. Every time they go to sleep, I want them to wonder if they will wake up. We are not soldiers anymore. We are hunters." Minho studied the map carefully. "There is a convoy carrying weapons to the front lines. It passes through this sector in 2 days. Light escort. We could hit it and disappear before reinforcements arrive." Una nodded. "Do it." The convoy never reached its destination. Across human space, other captains were doing the same thing. They did not attack the big fleets. They did not fight fair battles. They hit the enemy where it hurt most: their supplies, their communications, their confidence. The Valdori began to lose soldiers not to combat, but to fear. Officers refused assignments to the human front. Crews sabotaged their own ships to avoid deployment. Rumors spread through the Empire that the humans could not be stopped, that they never slept, that they never forgave. The rumors were not far from the truth. Dr. Hannah Shin spent her nights studying Valdoria prisoners. She learned their language, their culture, their fears. She discovered that Valdori commanders kept detailed records of their orders. Every attack, every death, every decision was written down and stored in central databases. "We can use this," she told Una. "We can find out exactly who gave the orders for New Busan. Every officer, every ship, every soldier. We can make a list." Una's eyes went cold. "Make the list." The list grew longer every day. Names, ranks, locations. Some were easy to find. Others were hidden deep within the Empire. It did not matter. The humans wrote every name in a file called the Debt. They would find them all eventually. Ensign Doan Lim sat alone in his quarters, looking at a small photograph. It was a picture of his class from New Bizen, 30 students smiling in front of their school. 29 of them were dead now. Only he had survived. He touched the faces in the picture, one by one. "I remember you," he whispered. "I will always remember you." Then he put on his uniform and went back to work. 6 months into the war, Admiral Jiho Park sent a message to the Galactic Council. It was short and simple: return our dead. Surrender those responsible, or this continues forever. Council leader Belmok laughed when he read it. "They cannot fight forever. They are only human." Ambassador Volok heard this and shook his head. "That is exactly why they will never stop," he said quietly. "Because they are only human, and humans do not forget." 2 years passed. The war continued. The Valdori Empire was not falling, but it was bleeding. Every month, more supply ships disappeared. Every week, another commander was found dead in his quarters. Every day, the fear grew stronger. The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They struck without warning and vanished like smoke. General Grovis had become obsessed with finding Unikong. He knew her name now. Everyone did. She was the ghost who haunted Valdori dreams. She was the hunter who never stopped. He sent his best assassins after her. They never returned. "Find her!" he screamed at his officers. "I do not care how many ships it takes. I do not care how many soldiers die. Find her and bring her to me." But Yuna was not easy to find. She moved through the stars like a shadow, always one step ahead. Her ship, the Silent Wrath, had become a legend. Some Valdori soldiers believed it was not a real ship at all, but a demon made of metal and hate. They were not entirely wrong. Yuna sat in her captain's chair, studying a holographic display. 2 years of hunting had taught her patience. She did not rush. She did not make mistakes. She waited for the perfect moment, and then she struck. Captain Minho said from his station, "We have found him." Yuna looked up. Her heart beat faster, but her face showed nothing. "Where Crovis is on a space station in the Beller system. He thinks he is safe there. The station is heavily defended, and it is deep inside Valdori territory." Yuna smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "He is not safe anywhere." The plan took 3 months to prepare. Yuna did not attack the station directly. That would be stupid. Instead, she attacked everything around it. She destroyed the fuel ships that kept it running. She cut the communication lines that connected it to the Empire. She spread rumors among the crew that the station was cursed, that everyone who served there would die. One by one, Crovis's allies abandoned him. His officers requested transfers to other posts. His soldiers deserted in the night. His friends in the government stopped returning his messages. By the time Yuna was ready to move, Crovis was alone. She did not go alone either. Dr. Hannah Shin had created a new weapon, gas that could put Valdori to sleep without killing them. Minho had mapped every corridor of the station using stolen data. Doan had hacked into the station's security systems and would shut them down at the right moment. They went in at night. The station was quiet. Most of the crew had already fled. The ones who remained did not last long. Hannah's gas filled the corridors, and soldiers dropped to the floor, unconscious. Yuna walked through the sleeping station like death itself. She did not hurry. She checked every room, every shadow, every corner. Finally, she reached the command center. Crovis was waiting for her. He was sitting in his chair, a weapon in his hand. He looked older than she expected. The war had aged him. His scales had lost their shine, and his eyes were filled with fear. "I knew you would come," he said. His voice was steady, but his hand was shaking. "You humans are predictable. You cannot let go." Yuna stopped a few meters away from him. "You killed 50,000 people. You burned children in their schools. You murdered my brother." "It was war," Crovis said. "I was following orders." "That is not an excuse." Yuna's voice was quiet, but it cut like a knife. "It is never an excuse." Crovis raised his weapon. "If you kill me, another will take my place. The Empire will not stop because one general dies." "I know," Yuna said. "That is why I did not come here just to kill you." Crovis looked confused. "Then why?" Yuna reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button. Suddenly the room was filled with holographic images, faces, names, dates, records of every order Crovis had ever given. Every crime he had ever committed, every innocent person he had ever killed. "This is being broadcast to every news channel in the galaxy right now," Yuna said. "Every species, every world, every person will see what you did. Your own people will see it. Your emperor will see it. Your family will see it." Crovis's face went pale. "You cannot do this. This is private military information." I already did." Yuna stepped closer to him. "You will not be remembered as a general. You will be remembered as a murderer. Your name will be a curse that parents use to scare their children. That is your punishment." She took his weapon from his shaking hand. He did not resist. He was too broken to resist. "Why?" Crovis whispered. "It has been 2 years. Your brother is dead. Your revenge should have faded by now. Why do you still care?" Yuna looked at him with eyes that held no mercy. "My brother was 23 years old. He wanted to be a poet. He used to read me his poems when we were children. Bad poems, mostly. But he tried so hard." She paused, and her voice grew harder. I have 80 more years to live, and I will spend every single one of them making sure the galaxy never forgets what you did. Not because I enjoy it, but because that is what humans do. We remember." She turned and walked out of the room. Behind her, Clovis sat alone in the darkness. Surrounded by the ghosts of his crimes, Una did not kill him. She did not need to. She had taken something more valuable than his life. She had taken his legacy. And that, she knew, was a wound that would never heal. The hunt was not over. There were other names on the list. Other criminals to find. Other debts to pay. But tonight, Una allowed herself one small moment of peace. She looked out at the stars and whispered to her brother, "I am keeping my promise." Taiho one name at a time. Then she returned to work. 5 years had passed since the burning of New Busan. The galaxy had changed. The Valdori Empire was dying. Not quickly, like a soldier killed in battle, but slowly, like a wounded animal bleeding in the dark. Their economy had collapsed under the weight of endless war. Their factories could not produce enough ships to replace the ones the humans destroyed. Their people were tired, hungry, and afraid. Admiral Jiho Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Memory. He was 60 years old now. His hair had turned completely white, and his face was lined with the marks of hard years. But his eyes were still sharp, and his mind was still clear. "Report," he said to his officers. "The Valdori have pulled back their fleets from 12 sectors," Minho said. Minho had been promoted to commander 2 years ago. He was no longer a young officer, but a veteran of dozens of battles. They cannot defend their outer territories anymore. They are concentrating their remaining ships around their homeworld. Jiho nodded slowly. "They are preparing for a final stand." "Should we attack now?" asked another officer. "We have enough ships. We could end this war in months." Jiho shook his head. "No. We attack now, and millions will die on both sides. The Valdori will fight like cornered animals. They will destroy everything rather than surrender." He looked out at the stars. "We have waited 5 years. We can wait a little longer. Let them collapse on their own. Let their people turn against their leaders. When we finally move, I want them too weak to resist." This was the human way. Patience, pressure, persistence. I did not need to win every battle. They just needed to never stop. On the Silent Wrath, Captain Unikong led the most dangerous mission of the war. Her target was the Valdori homeworld's orbital defense grid. As long as it was active, no human fleet could get close enough to force a surrender. The grid had to fall. "This is a suicide mission," Minho told her before she left. "The defenses are too strong. Even if you get through, you might not get out." Una smiled. It was the first real smile anyone had seen on her face in years. "I have lived long enough to see this day. That is enough." Her crew had changed over the years. Some had died. Some had moved on. But the core remained. Hannah Shin was still her science officer, her hair now streaked with gray. Doan Lim had become her first officer. He was no longer the frightened boy who had survived New Busan. He was a man who had learned that survival was not enough. You had to fight for something greater than yourself. The mission began at midnight. Ship time. The Silent Wrath slipped through the Valdor defenses like a knife through silk. Hannah's research had paid off. She had found gaps in their sensor network, blind spots in their patrol patterns. Dohan guided them through, his voice calm and steady as he coordinated with the other ships in the strike force. They reached the defense grid at dawn. The grid was massive, a network of weapons platforms that could destroy an entire fleet in minutes. But it had one weakness. All the platforms were controlled from a single command station. Destroy the station, and the whole grid would go dark. "All teams prepare for assault," Una ordered. The attack was brutal and fast. Human soldiers stormed the command station while the Silent Wrath provided cover fire. The Valdori defenders fought hard, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Years of war had taken their best soldiers. Only the old and the tired remained. Minho led the ground assault himself. He moved through the station like a storm, clearing room after room. He had changed too. The strategist had become a warrior. The planner had become a fighter. War had made them all into something harder, something sharper. The command station fell in less than an hour. Doan hacked into the main computer and shut down the entire defense grid. For the first time in 5 years, the Valdori homeworld was vulnerable. Yuna sent a message to Admiral Jiho. The grid is down. The door is open. Jiho received the message with a heavy heart. He had waited for this moment for 5 years. He had dreamed of it, planned for it, sacrificed everything for it. Now it was here, and all he could think about was his daughter. Somin, he whispered, touching the picture in his pocket. I wish you could see this. The human fleet moved toward the Valdori homeworld. 1,000 ships, carrying the hope and grief of an entire species. They did not come to conquer. They came for justice. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Council leader Belmok was no longer laughing. His scales had turned dull with stress, and his voice had lost its arrogance. We must intervene, he said to the other council members. If the humans destroy the Valdor, they will become too powerful. They will threaten us all. Ambassador Volek rose from his seat. You want to protect the Valdori now? After everything they did? This is not about justice, Belmok replied. This is about balance. The galaxy cannot afford another dominant power. Then you should have thought about that 5 years ago, Volek said coldly. You had the chance to stop this. You chose not to listen. Now you must live with the consequences. He turned to face the whole council. The humans do not want to rule the galaxy. They want acknowledgement. They want the Valdori to admit what they did. They want the guilty to face trial. Give them that, and this war will end. The council debated for hours. In the end, fear won over pride. They sent a message to the Valdori Emperor. Surrender now, or face destruction alone. The Emperor had no choice. His fleet was broken. His economy was ruined. His people were starving. He sent a message to Admiral Jiho Park, requesting peace talks. Jiho read the message twice. Then he closed his eyes and let out a long breath. The war was almost over, but the hardest part was still to come. Peace was easy to talk about. Justice was harder to achieve. He opened a channel to Captain Unikong. He had been invited to negotiate. I want you there, Yuna's voice came back, steady and strong. I will be there. I have waited a long time for this. The final chapter was about to begin. The great hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled. Representatives from 100 species watched in silence as the humans entered the chamber. Admiral Jiho Park walked at the front, his white hair shining under the lights. Behind him came Captain Unikong, Commander Minho Beek, Dr. Hannah Shin, and Commander Doan Lim. Behind them walked 200 more human survivors of New Busan. Families of the dead, soldiers who had fought for 5 long years. They did not look like conquerors. They looked like mourners who had finally reached the end of a very long road. The Valdori Emperor sat on the other side of the chamber. He was younger than Jiho expected, with bright golden scales and nervous eyes. He had not been emperor when New Busan burned. That had been his father, who had died 2 years ago from shame and stress. The son had inherited a broken empire and an impossible debt. Council leader Belmok cleared his throat. We are gathered here to discuss peace between the Valdori Empire and the United Nations of Earth. Admiral Park, you may present your terms. Jiho stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The room was so silent that even a whisper would have echoed. We do not want your territory, he said. We do not want your wealth. We do not want revenge. He paused, letting the words sink in. We want justice. He placed a document on the table. It was called the New Busan Accords. First, Jiho said, the Valdori government will publicly acknowledge that the attack on New Busan was an unprovoked assault on civilians. No excuses. No justifications. A full admission of guilt. The Valdori Emperor's face tightened, but he said nothing. Second, every officer who participated in the attack will stand trial under joint human Valdori law. If found guilty, they will serve their sentences in human custody. A memorial will be built on every Valdori world. bearing the names of the 50,000 dead. Your children will learn about New Busan in their schools. Your people will remember what was done in their name. Fourth, the Galactic Council will pass a new law. Any species that attacks civilians without provocation will face collective response from all member worlds. No exceptions. No forgiveness. The chamber erupted in whispers. This was not what anyone had expected. The humans were not asking for land or resources or power. They were asking for something far more valuable. They were asking for memory. Council leader Belmok frowned. This is humiliation. You are asking the Valdori to shame themselves before the entire galaxy. Yuna stepped forward. She held something in her hand, a small holographic projector. She pressed a button, and an image appeared in the air. It was a young man with a gentle smile and kind eyes. He was surrounded by children, all of them laughing. This is my brother, Yuna said. Her voice was soft but clear. His name was Taiho. He was 23 years old. He was a teacher. He loved poetry and music and helping others. When the attack came, he stayed behind to save his students. He got 37 children to the shelters before the bombs fell. He died trying to save the 38th. She looked at the Valdori Emperor with eyes that held no hatred, only grief. This is not humiliation, she said. This is memory. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your power. We want you to remember. We want the galaxy to remember, because we will never forget. The chamber was silent. Even Belmok had no response. Ambassador Volek rose slowly from his seat. I have lived for 300 years, he said. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen wars begin and end. But I have never seen anything like this. He looked at the humans with something close to respect. They could have destroyed you. They could have taken everything you have. Instead, they ask only that you admit the truth. He turned to the council. This is not weakness. This is strength of a kind we do not understand. I vote yes to the accords. One by one, the other council members voted. The motion passed. The Valdori Emperor stood. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. I accept these terms. On behalf of my people, I acknowledge the crime committed against the people of New Busan. I offer no excuses. I ask only for the chance to earn forgiveness, if forgiveness is even possible. Jiho looked at him for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. Forgiveness will take time, but peace begins today. They shook hands. The war was over. 50 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The New Busan Accords had changed everything. War still happened, but no one attacked civilians anymore. The phrase, "Remember New Busan," had become a warning that every species understood. Some lessons were too painful to forget. An old woman walked through a beautiful garden on the Valdori homeworld. Her name was Yuna Kong. She was 82 years old now, with white hair and a face marked by time. But her eyes were still sharp, and her steps were still strong. The garden was a memorial. 50,000 names were carved into walls of black stone, surrounded by flowers from 100 different worlds. Humans and Valdori came here every year to pay their respects. Children learned about the war in their schools. Teachers taught them that peace was built on memory and understanding. A group of young Valdori students approached her. Their teacher, a middle-aged Valdori with gentle eyes, guided them forward. Children, the teacher said. This is Captain Yuna Kong. She is one of the last hunters, the humans who fought in the Great War. One of the children raised a hand. Why did you keep fighting for so long? Why did you not give up? Yuna smiled. It was a kind smile, warm and sad and wise. Because that is what humans do, she said. We remember. We hold on. We keep our promises, even when it is hard. Even when it hurts. Even when the whole universe tells us to stop. She looked at the wall of names behind her. My brother taught me that. He never gave up on his students. So I never gave up on him. The children were silent, their eyes wide with understanding. Yuna walked to the wall and placed a single flower at the base. The name above it read, Taiho Kung, teacher, poet, hero. I kept my promise, Taiho, she whispered. They will never forget you. She stood there for a long moment, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the hopes of the future. Then she turned and walked away, into the light of a new day. The hunt was finally over, but the memory would last forever.